The relationship between the United States and Niger is complex and has changed over time. This connection includes security, economic, and political collaboration, among other things. Numerous elements have influenced their relationship throughout history, including Niger's advantageous position in West Africa, its abundance of natural resources, and the difficulties it encounters with security and governance. However, in today's video, we will be looking at something quite different. Niger's Prime Minister has blamed the US for the rupture of the military pact. We will also be looking at how the US forces' withdrawal in Niger is going. But before we do that, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the New Tourist channel so you are updated on whatever is going on in Niger. In a recent turn of events, Mahaman Lamine Zeine, Niger's Prime Minister, has blamed the US for a rupture in an important military pact between the two countries that allows US forces to station in the West African nation. Zeine claimed in a Washington Post interview that US authorities had failed to provide a rationale for the US forces' stay in Niger and had tried to dictate which nations Niger might support. He said that the Americans stayed on their soil, doing nothing while the terrorists killed people and burned towns. Note that Niger's democratically elected president, Mohamed Bazoum, was overthrown by a military coup last year. After this, Washington suspended counterterrorism operations and suspended security support for the Islamic State. Air Base 201 is where the U.S. stations over 1,000 military personnel and uses drones to spy on groups linked to al-Qaeda and the Islamic State in the Sahel. Last month, the U.S. acted on Niger's demands that U.S. troops leave and agreed to withdraw its forces. There are concerns that U.S. influence in West Africa may decline and Russian power may take its place in light of the U.S.-Niger Security Pact's cancellation. Moscow is already regarded as being close to neighboring Burkina Faso and Mali, where Russia's Wagner mercenary force has established a presence. In July of last year, Yevgeny Prigozhin, the leader of the Wagner Group, welcomed the new military government in Niger and offered Wagner's services. He was terminated in August. Russia has sent troops to the capital, Niamey, despite a counteroffer made by U.S. diplomats and military personnel intended to maintain collaboration. Now, U.S. and Russian forces are stationed at opposite sides of an airbase. Zeine disclosed the full depth of the U.S.-Nigeria relationship's collapse in an interview with the Washington Post. According to Zeine, the National Council for Safeguarding the Homeland, leaders of Niger's new government, were not pleased that the U.S. had stopped military assistance but had maintained U.S. troops in the nation. Note that General Michael Langley, head of the U.S. Africa Command, told a Senate Armed Services Committee meeting in March that while the U.S. was no longer conducting counterterrorism operations from Niger, a U.S. military presence in the region was necessary to counter Russian encroachment. According to Zeine, the U.S. perspective on the coup in Niger was in stark contrast to that of Russia, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates, who welcomed the new government in Niamey with open arms. Zeine further stated that had the U.S. granted Niger's requests for additional support, including planes, drones, and air defense systems, Niger would not have turned to Russia for assistance. He did, however, add that he had conveyed to the U.S. delegation Niger's continued desire for diplomatic and commercial ties with the U.S. "We would give American investors what they wanted if they came. We have uranium, we have oil, we have lithium. Come, invest. It is all we want." As all this is going on, U.S. and Nigerian officials concluded official high-level talks last week to coordinate plans to withdraw all American military forces from the country. Members of Niger's military government were briefed on Wednesday and Thursday in Niamey by Lieutenant General Dagvin Anderson, head of Joint Force Development and Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations and Low-Intensity Conflict, Christopher Mayer. U.S. and Nigerian leaders agreed to a phased withdrawal of American forces from Niger as soon as it's feasible in the coming months, after being in the country for more than a decade, to ensure smooth entries and exits during the withdrawal of U.S. forces. Participants in this week's negotiations approved diplomatic clearances for withdrawal flights, as well as confirmed protections and immunizations for U.S. personnel. The discussions were based on mutual respect. There are about 900 U.S. military personnel in Niger, including active duty, civilians, and contractors. Most of the U.S. military personnel have stayed in the country past their deployment's planned end dates, as details for their withdrawal are ironed out. To keep an eye on terrorist organizations in the area, the U.S. has maintained 2 military bases: Air Base 201 in Agadez and Air Base 101 in Niamey. The majority of U.S. personnel are stationed at the latter, which took them $110 million to construct and also started drone operations in 2019. Niger's natural resources have increased its importance to global powers, and its location had provided the U.S. with the ability to conduct counter-terror operations throughout much of West Africa. There has been a significant increase in jihadist movements in the region, including Niger, Mali, Nigeria, and Burkina Faso. The Sahel region accounted for nearly half of all terrorist-related casualties in 2018. Burkina Faso, Niger's neighbor, was most severely affected, with 1,907 terrorist casualties in 2023. The coup in Niger has left the West's ability to keep an eye on terrorist organizations such as Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group in the Sahel in complete disarray. However, given that the United States is having difficulty finding partners in what she referred to as the coup belt, a reference to the recent coups in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, the Pentagon will attempt to negotiate with Chad for a larger American troop deployment. But in recent weeks, the majority of U.S. personnel have departed Chad for Germany. The Pentagon described this as a temporary step in the course of an ongoing evaluation of U.S. security cooperation with Chad, which will pick back up following the country's May 6 electoral contest. Only a small group of service members remain in Chad as part of a multinational task force. Bear in mind that Niger was unique in that it was home to one of the few democratically elected governments in the area, one that was also amicable to the United States and open to receiving American military forces. Therefore, finding a suitable substitute for that in a military installation will be challenging. The counterterrorism drones will probably have to spend the majority of their fuel supply flying thousands of kilometers from U.S. facilities in Italy or Djibouti, limiting their time above the targets and their capacity to gather intelligence, unless the U.S. can locate another site to use in West Africa. Moving away from all this, note that the military leaders of Niger have escalated the Benin border spat, blocking Chinese oil exports. Niger's Prime Minister, Ali Mahaman Lamine Zeine, declared that Benin's embargo on its oil exports violated commercial agreements between Benin and Niamey's Chinese allies. Zeine's declaration that Niger's border with Benin could not be fully reopened because of security concerns escalated the issue even more. Cotonou retaliated by stating that it would only submit if Niamey allowed Beninese commodities back over its borders and repaired diplomatic relations. The $400 million deal for Niger to start selling crude oil to China is in peril because of the standoff. Keep in mind that a 2,000-kilometer pipeline constructed by China connects the capital port of Benin to the Agadem oil field in Niger. Zeine, however, claimed that the blockade went against over a dozen agreements that Benin, Niger, and the Chinese business PetroChina had signed. He continued by saying that one of the agreements on oil exports said that Benin could not unilaterally alter or restrict the agreements in any way without the other country's approval. This indicates that the nation decided against making any decisions that would halt Niger's crude oil from reaching the global market. It is significant to remember that the coup in Niger in July 2023 caused the West African Regional Organization ECOWAS to impose severe sanctions that lasted for more than 6 months, severely straining relations between the two countries. Benin and the West African Regional Bloc imposed severe penalties on Niger to pressure the military into returning control to the elected government, including border closures. In December, the president of Benin declared that the import ban on commodities passing through the Cotonou Autonomous Port on their way to Niger would be lifted, following ECOWAS laws. Even though things calmed down in February, Niger has refused to permit Benin's goods to pass over its land border once more. Niger has been going through a lot lately. With the Niger Prime Minister blaming the U.S., the blame game over the breakup of the military alliance between Niger and the U.S. has heated up. It is imperative, therefore, to approach this matter with an open mind and take the larger picture into account. Because diplomatic connections are intricate, placing all the responsibility on one person oversimplifies the matter. For their military cooperation to grow and confidence to be restored, both countries must actively seek to establish a productive discussion and common ground. Niger and the United States cannot advance and guarantee the security and stability of the area unless they cooperate and understand one another. Do you think Niger's Prime Minister is right with his blames? Let us know what you think in the comments. Do not forget to like this video and subscribe to the new Tourist channel. Turn on notifications too so you get notified whenever we upload videos like this. Thanks for watching and see you in our next video.